Hello, Pink Collective, and welcome to Pink After Dark. Tonight's tales blur the line between true and fictional, so get comfortable, turn down the lights, and let's begin.
Good evening, Blackwood Insomniacs. It's Allie Clifford here, your temporary ghost story keeper while my brother is. Well, we'll get to that. First things first, Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you're all warm, full of good food, and safely surrounded by the people you love. Blackwood campus is completely deserted right now. It genuinely looks like a ghost town out there, which, honestly, very on brand for this channel. Now, to all of you loyal listeners who've been sending messages asking where Alex is, oh my gosh, you guys. I cannot tell you how much it means to me that so many people who have never even met my brother care so deeply about him. I cried reading your comments. I'm not even embarrassed about it. So let me tell you what's going on, because you deserve to know. My name is Allie, and some of you might remember Alex mentioning his twin sister at the end of his forest story, telling her not to go into the woods. That was me. I was listening. I did not go into the woods. What Alex did do, however, was go into the main building. In that same episode, he told you he was going to check it out, from the outside only, he said. He was very clear about that. He promised he wasn't going in. He went in. Campus security found him, and from the nature of his injuries, they believe he must have fallen. Most of the damage is to his head. He is currently in a coma. The doctors have classified it as a minimally conscious state, which is actually good news, and I keep reminding myself of that every single day. It means there is still brain function. We can tell when he reacts to us talking to him. He hears us. He's still in there. So that is why I'm here, recording his episode. I refuse to let this channel go dark while he's lying in that hospital bed. Knowing Alex, he would absolutely lose his mind if he woke up and found out the channel had died, and I am not about to give him something else to stress about when he comes back. I also, and maybe this is just me being his sister and wanting to believe it, think that hearing the things he loves might help bring him back faster. I talk to him every day. I tell him about you guys, about the channel, about everything. I also have a genuinely ridiculous stack of finished stories he wrote and prepared notes for, so we are not going anywhere. He better wake up before I get through them all, because I am not a writer. I am just his sister, doing her best. If you've stuck around this far, thank you. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode. Let's make sure he wakes up to an audience that's grown while he was gone. He'd love that. Okay, I have kept you long enough. Let's get into it. This week's story comes from a small antique store tucked between the larger buildings of Ravenbrooke, the kind of place you might walk past a dozen times without ever noticing the sign above the door. But once you've been inside, you don't forget it. Mary Ann's Antique Store has furnished more dorm rooms on Blackwood campus than any catalog ever could, and has decorated more homes in Ravenbrooke than its modest size would suggest. Many pieces leave Mary Ann's only to find their way back years later, returned by students who've graduated and moved on, unwilling to drag a heavy wardrobe across the country. But there is one item that comes back more often than all the rest, one item that Mary Ann and her husband have made a quiet, private bet about every time it disappears, not a wager on whether it will return, but on how soon. The item is a full-length mirror. The frame is crafted from dark wood, beautifully hand-carved by an artisan who once kept a small workshop in Ravenbrooke. The frame is intricate and alive with detail. Vines curl and twist along the edges, flowers are frozen mid-bloom, and leaves are layered one over the other, as though caught in a breath of still air. It is, by any measure, a beautiful thing, and yet it never stays. Mary Ann eventually began keeping her own quiet record. Names, dates, how long each owner held onto it before it came back. The pattern never changed. 2 weeks, sometimes a month. 3 months at the very most, and the people who returned it could rarely explain why. Most said only that the previous owner had asked them to bring it back, that they had not spoken to the owner themselves. The owners never came in person. They never called. They simply stopped keeping the mirror and sent someone else to do what they could not bring themselves to do. Once Mary Ann didn't even see the return happen, she arrived one morning to open the store and found the mirror standing outside on the pavement, leaning against the front door as though it had walked there on its own and settled in to wait. She brought it inside herself, being older now and the mirror being heavier than it looked, and in maneuvering it through the doorway, she bumped the bottom of the frame against the door. A small piece of the carved wood split away at the grain, exposing a thin sliver of the mirror's bare edge beneath. She called her husband to move it to the storeroom and repair it before putting it back on sale. And there it sat in the back of the shop, in the quiet and the dark. The first week passed without incident, but Mary Ann began to notice each morning when she arrived to open up that small things were wrong with the store. The tray of old perfume bottles she kept on the counter, always carefully arranged, would be knocked over. Some mornings the bottles were rolling across the floor. Some mornings 2 or 3 had shattered, and the store would be filled with the ghost of someone else's perfume, faint and floral and slightly too sweet, like something from another era that had no business being in the room. She told herself it was a draft. She blamed the neighboring cat that sometimes found its way in through the back. She blamed herself for not being careful enough with where she set things down. By the second week, she had run out of things to blame. It began as a feeling, that particular, prickling certainty that she was not alone in the room, even when she plainly was. She would be dusting a shelf or unwrapping a new delivery and feel the weight of a gaze settle slowly on the back of her neck, deliberate and patient like a hand being placed there. When she turned, there was never anyone. But sometimes, just sometimes, she would catch the tail end of something vanishing from the face of a glass clock, or from the curved belly of a silver serving dish, or from the dark surface of an old framed photograph blackened with age, always gone before she could properly see it, always a single second too late. Things moved around the store on their own. A ceramic figurine placed on the left side of a shelf would be on the right side by morning. A stack of books she had ordered by size would be rearranged by color. A lace tablecloth she had folded neatly and set in the window display would be found draped loosely over the rocking chair in the corner, as though someone had sat down for a long rest and left it behind. She stopped pretending there were explanations. By the third week, Mary Ann saw a face, or rather, she almost saw a face. She would catch it in the reflection of a glass-fronted cabinet and spin around to find nothing behind her. She would spot it between the shelves of old toys, pale and motionless, watching from between the painted wooden horses and the dusty baby dolls with their blank painted eyes. She would glance up at one of the oil portraits on the wall, and for just a moment, just one single, lurching moment, the figure standing in the background of the painting would be facing the wrong way. It was always the same face. A woman's face. The skin was unnervingly pale, the kind of pale that suggested no sunlight, no warmth, the pallor of something that existed only in the dark between glances. The eyes were wide and colorless, a washed-out blue that seemed to gather light from nowhere. Her hair was long and lank, hanging in dark, oily strings, the kind of hair that had not been touched in a very long time. The face was gaunt and hollow and wrong in the way that faces in dreams are wrong, where you understand that something is deeply off before you can find the words for what it is. But the lips were painted a deep, vivid red. The lipstick was perfect, precise. The one immaculate, carefully kept thing about her. Mary Ann had not yet made the connection to the mirror sitting in the back room. Her husband had since repaired the broken piece of frame, gluing the carved wood back into place and concealing the exposed edge. The mirror had been brought out and hung on the showroom wall. The face stopped appearing. But each morning when Mary Ann arrived and unlocked the door and crossed the floor to the mirror, she found the same thing waiting for her. A single kiss pressed into the glass in red lipstick. Perfect, deliberate, placed at exactly face height, as though left by someone who had been standing very close to the glass and wanted her to know it.
What a creepy-ass mirror.
Harper, shh. The mirror sold quickly enough. A family in town came in, fell in love with the frame, and took it home to hang in their entrance hall. Not 2 weeks later, they were back. Their cat had refused to walk past it. Not to eat, not to reach the other side of the house, not for anything. It had begun sitting at the far end of the hallway and staring at the mirror from a distance, perfectly still, for hours at a time. On the third day, it stopped using that half of the house altogether. The family moved the mirror, rehung it in a different room, tried covering it with a sheet. Nothing worked. They returned it without quite meeting Mary Ann's eyes. Back on display it went, and every morning, without fail, the lipstick kiss. It had only been back on the wall for a few days when the woman from the bakery across the road came in. She spent most of her lunch breaks in Mary Ann's store, had done for years, and she had been after that mirror since the very first time she'd seen it, always arriving just a day too late to find it still there. This time she let out a sound that could only be described as a victory shriek when she walked in and spotted it still on the wall. Mary Ann told her to take it. No charge, they had been friends for too long, and besides, she had made enough money from that mirror over the years. More than enough. The mirror left that afternoon, and for 1 month the store was quiet. Then the bottle started falling again. The feeling of being watched crept back in, heavier than before. The face returned to the reflections around the store, still pale, still watching, still framed by that long dark hair. But something had changed. It was smiling now, a wide, red-lipped smile that stretched just a little too far across a face that size, showing just a little too much, the kind of smile that has nothing to do with happiness. Mary Ann grew frightened to open the store alone. She began asking her husband to come in with her each morning. He would potter around the shop cheerfully, moving stock and reorganizing shelves, and she would watch him from across the room and notice, with growing unease, that he was talking. Not to himself, exactly. He was looking up from whatever he was doing, pausing, nodding, as though someone had said something worth listening to, and then carrying on with his work. When she asked him about it later, he said he didn't know what she meant. He hadn't been talking to anyone. Then, on an ordinary afternoon, a group of teenagers came giggling into the store, drifting between the furniture and picking things up to examine them. One of them stopped. She had gone very still, and then she screamed, not a shriek of surprise, but something deeper and heavier from the stomach. Mary Ann rushed over to find the girl standing in front of the mirror she had given her friend a month before. The girl was shaking. She explained, between sobs, that her mother had been given the mirror as a gift and had hung it in her bedroom. Almost immediately, she had started seeing a woman in it. Not a reflection, a woman who was simply there, standing behind her in the glass, when no one was standing behind her in the room, present in the dark surface of the mirror when she woke in the night and looked over. Then one corner of the frame had broken, just as it had broken before, exposing that same thin, bare edge of glass, and after that the nightmares had started. The woman climbing out, reaching for her. She had woken up, night after night, with marks on her arms, long, thin marks in pairs, like pressure, like something had been gripping her in her sleep and didn't want to let go. Her father had taken the mirror outside and smashed it. He had bagged up every piece and thrown it in the bin, and yet here it stood, whole, perfect, its carved vines climbing the dark wooden frame as though nothing had ever touched it. Mary Ann knew then that she could not sell it again. She also knew, standing in her own store with a teenager shaking in front of her, that she could not destroy it. It did not seem to be the kind of thing that stayed destroyed. Her husband sealed it in a wooden crate and they drove it to a storage unit on the edge of town. For months they heard nothing. The store settled. The bottles stayed where she put them. The face in the reflections was gone. Then, one afternoon, a woman came to the counter to pay for a small writing desk and mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that she'd also like to take the full-length mirror at the front of the store, the lovely one with the carved wooden frame, the one the sales assistant had brought out especially for her to see. Mary Ann told her, carefully, that she didn't have a sales assistant. The woman blinked. Well, someone had brought it out. A woman. She'd been very helpful. She'd pointed it out specifically and waited while she looked it over. They walked to the front of the store together. There it was, standing in the middle of the floor, the mirror in its carved wooden frame, vines and flowers and all, not a scratch, not a crack. Waiting, as it always did, for someone new to take it home. So Blackwood Insomniacs, if you ever find yourself wandering through Ravenbrooke and you step into a certain antique store and you see a full-length mirror with a dark carved frame, beautifully made, with vines and flowers running along the edge, leave it exactly where it is. Tell the owner, she may not even know it's there, and don't let it catch your reflection on your way out. Okay, that is more than enough spooky for one night. Genuinely, if you are still awake right now, I am a little worried about you. Go to sleep. It's Christmas. Thank you all so much for being here and for every kind word you've sent about Alex. It means more than I can say. Keep sharing the episodes, keep sending the love. He's going to wake up and be completely overwhelmed, and I cannot wait for that day. I'll be back soon with another one of his stories. Until then, stay safe, stay warm, and maybe sleep with the lights on tonight. Just a suggestion, this is Allie. Good night, Alex.
If tonight's story stayed with you, become part of the Pink Collective by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Until next time, Pink Collective, stay curious, stay safe, and stay pink.